The rain poured down in torrents as I stood at the threshold of my parents' grand home. The familiar marble foyer greeted me, but this time, it felt cold, alien. The sounds of classical music filled the air, mixed with the clinking of champagne glasses, as my parents hosted yet another lavish gathering. I was drenched, my clothes clinging to my skin, but it wasn't just the rain that soaked me. It was the weight of their rejection, the constant undermining of my dreams. "Amy, not now," my mother's voice cut through the air as she spotted me across the room. She was dressed in her finest pearls and silk dress, the picture of perfection, but there was no warmth in her gaze. "This is Blake's night. We have guests." Blake, my older brother, the golden child who could do no wrong, the one who had always been the one my parents showered with praise while I was left in the shadows. "Mom, please, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice wavering with the desperation I felt inside. Her smile faltered as she excused herself from a group of friends, and I could see the disdain in her eyes. "What is it now, Amy?" she hissed, her voice sharp and cutting. "Blake's engagement party is not the time for your little problems." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. They didn't care about me. They never had. They cared about the image they presented to the world, about the perfect, picture-perfect family. I stood there, trembling, not from the cold, but from the sting of being unseen, unheard, and undervalued. My heart raced, and the lump in my throat grew larger with every passing second. "I need help," I whispered, my voice cracking under the pressure. I had never asked them for anything, not when I needed support for my business, not when I struggled to keep my dreams alive. But now, when my daughter, Zoe, was in need of surgery, a life-saving surgery, I had nowhere else to turn. My parents were my only hope, or so I thought. "Zoe needs surgery." They said without it, she might not survive, I explained, my voice barely more than a breath. My father looked up briefly, but his eyes held no real concern. "How much?" he asked, his voice devoid of empathy. "I don't have insurance right now. The business has been struggling," I confessed. I was going to enroll her when the new client payment came through. "But it's too late now. They need payment within 48 hours, or they won't operate." My father's face tightened, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "How much?" His words were clipped, impatient. $25,000, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The silence that followed felt suffocating. 25,000, my father repeated. "We can't afford that right now, Amy. Blake's wedding is in 3 months, and we've already committed to covering a lot of the costs." My heart sank. What costs? What could possibly be more important than Zoe's life? I could hear the tremble in my voice, the desperation creeping in. "Amy, your sister's wedding is not the time for this kind of drama," my father said with a wave of his hand. It was as though I had asked them for a favor they were too busy to grant. "I've already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the venue, catering, honeymoon, and non-refundable deposits for Blake's wedding. We just can't help you right now. You've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a wedding while your granddaughter's life is on the line." I was losing it. I couldn't keep my voice steady. "Zoe's in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, and you're telling me you can't help? For a party?" The anger in me bubbled to the surface, but there was nothing I could do. I had no choice but to swallow my pride, to swallow the fact that they didn't care enough about their own flesh and blood to help. "Amy, please." "Not now," my mother sighed, her voice dripping with frustration. "You should have planned better. There are consequences to poor financial decisions." That was it. That was the moment I realized my parents had never been there for me. Not when I struggled to start my business. Not when I needed them the most. They never saw me for who I was, only for the failures they assumed I would become. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking with rage and frustration. "I'll find a way," I muttered through gritted teeth, and with that, I turned and walked out of the room, the weight of their rejection pushing me out of their perfect little world. I stepped outside into the rain, feeling the cold water drip down my back, but it wasn't the rain that made me shiver. It was the realization that my parents had chosen a wedding over my daughter's life. I wouldn't beg them again. Not for money. Not for anything. The desperation that had been clawing at me, that I thought had consumed me, was replaced with something harder, something fiercer. It was time to take control. The next few days blurred together in a haze of phone calls, paperwork, and sleepless nights. But something clicked inside of me. I refused to be defeated by my family's indifference. I refused to let Zoe's fate be decided by their apathy. I scrounged together what I could, sold whatever possessions I had left that were of any value, and dug into every ounce of strength I had left. Slowly, inch by inch, I started building again. My business had always been a side project, a hobby, something my parents had dismissed as a waste of time. But it was the only thing I had left to hold on to. I began focusing all my energy on it, pouring my heart into every design, every campaign. Soon, people started noticing. My work started gaining traction, and the clients I'd been chasing for years were finally reaching out. There was something about the passion in my work, the fire that had ignited in me after everything had fallen apart. Zoe's surgery was a success. My daughter was alive. And with each passing day, my business grew stronger. I began taking on bigger projects, expanding my network, and charging higher fees. The success I had once dreamed of, the success they had once mocked me for, was finally coming to fruition. But it wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could do this, that I was more than their expectations. It was about standing on my own, no longer relying on their approval or their money. Then, the unexpected happened. My parents reached out. "Amy, we heard about your business," my mother's voice cracked through the phone. We were wondering if you could help us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents, who had dismissed me, belittled me, and let my daughter suffer for the sake of their image, were asking for my help. "We've lost everything. The business is failing," she continued. "We need you to help us get back on our feet." I couldn't even respond at first. After everything they'd put me through, everything I had endured alone, they thought I would just swoop in and save them. My hands clenched into fists. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to be the one asking for help. I wasn't going to beg them for their approval, not when I had finally built something on my own. So, I asked them one simple question: "Do you really think you deserve my help?" There was silence on the other end of the line. And then, in that moment, I realized this was the moment I had been waiting for. This was my chance to take the power back. "I've built my success without you. And I don't need you to take it away from me now," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Goodbye." I hung up the phone and stared out the window, feeling the weight of everything lift off my shoulders. My parents would never change, and it didn't matter. I had built a life for myself and my daughter. I had done it all on my own. The business I had once dreamed of was now a multi-million-dollar empire. And I was in control. But as I stood there, looking out at the city skyline, my phone buzzed with a new message. From Blake. "Mom wants to know if Zoe survived. Also, you're causing drama at my engagement dinner." I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. This wasn't over. Not yet. The real test was coming. I stared at Blake's text. My heart dropped, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. "Mom wants to know if Zoe survived. Also, you're causing drama at my engagement dinner." The words flashed on my screen, taunting me. I hadn't heard from my parents in weeks. After everything that had happened, I hadn't expected a call or a message, certainly not a text like this. It felt like another cruel reminder that, for them, nothing had changed. I slammed my phone onto the counter, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and disbelief. The nerve of them. They didn't even care about Zoe's life. They didn't care about me. They cared about appearances, about their precious little world where nothing could go wrong, no matter how many people they crushed along the way. I could feel the anger building up inside me, a fire I thought I'd extinguished long ago. But this was different. They hadn't just taken money from me. They'd stolen something far more important, my belief in family. My trust. I stood in my office, the same office where my business was now thriving. The empire I had built from scratch, piece by piece, fueled by late nights and rejection. My phone buzzed again, snapping me back to reality. Another text from Blake. "Mom's freaking out. Dad is too. They're in trouble, Amy. Please, Just let me know if Zoe's okay. I felt a pang of guilt. Zoe was okay. She was fine. But did they deserve to know? Did they even deserve to have their questions answered? The answer was clear. No. I was done with them. Still, the message lingered in my mind. They're in trouble. I couldn't ignore it. They'd made their choices. But I couldn't deny the faint spark of curiosity. What kind of trouble were they really in? What had they done this time? The idea gnawed at me, pulling me back to the very thing I'd sworn to leave behind, my parents. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. For a moment, everything felt still, as though the universe itself had paused. And then, as if on cue, my phone rang. It was Mom. My stomach twisted. My fingers hovered over the screen. The old Amy, the girl who'd spent years chasing their approval, wanted to pick up. She wanted to listen to their voices, hear the apologies, maybe, just maybe, be given a chance to forgive them. But that was not the woman I had become. I let it ring, the seconds dragging on like minutes. The silence was deafening. And then I heard it. The familiar ding of a voicemail. I stared at my phone before finally swiping across to listen. Amy, my mother's voice crackled through the speaker, soft and desperate. We need your help. I don't know who else to turn to. Her voice faltered, and I could almost see her desperately clutching her pearls, trying to keep up appearances even in this moment of vulnerability. Your father's business is failing. The bank is threatening to take everything. We don't have the money, Amy. I'm begging you. Please, come through for us. Please. Don't let us lose everything. My jaw clenched. I could almost see it. My parents, the perfect couple, now standing on the edge of financial ruin. The irony was not lost on me. They had chosen everything, their wealth, their status, their image over me. And now, they were asking for my help. I couldn't stop the laughter that bubbled up from my chest. It was hollow, bitter. I walked over to the window of my office, looking down at the busy streets below. People rushing, cars honking, the world turning, completely unaware of the drama unfolding in my life. My business was booming. I had fought tooth and nail to build something. I had people who relied on me now. Employees, clients, investors. And yet, here were my parents, expecting me to bail them out. As if nothing had ever changed. As if I hadn't clawed my way to success after their years of neglect and their constant undermining of my dreams. I felt the familiar weight in my chest, the pressure building. For so long, I had told myself I was done with them. But now, their message had forced me to confront something darker, an old, nagging question that I couldn't ignore anymore. Did I really want them to fail? Did I want to see them lose it all? I took a deep breath and sat down at my desk, hands trembling as I typed a response to Blake. Blake, I've made my choices. You all made yours. I don't owe you anything anymore. I built this by myself. Whatever happens to you and Mom and Dad, it's not my problem. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then, I sat back and stared at the screen, my mind spinning. I couldn't ignore the sting of their betrayal. My parents had shown me their true selves. They hadn't cared when I needed them. They had taken everything I had, my time, my dreams, my dignity, and crushed it. Why should I care about their misery now? But then, another message came through. This one wasn't from Blake. It was from a number I didn't recognize. Amy. It's Tom. We need to talk. Your parents didn't tell you everything. My pulse spiked. Tom. My ex-husband. The father of Zoe. The man I had left behind years ago. What was he doing texting me now? Before I could overthink it, I dialed his number. Hello. His voice came through the phone, calm, but with an underlying urgency. Amy, listen to me. I know you're angry, but this is serious. Your parents are in way deeper trouble than they've let on. I've been looking into their finances for a while. They've been hiding things from you. Big things. What kind of things? My voice was shaky, my heart pounding in my chest. Was this another one of his stunts, some kind of manipulation to get me involved in his world again? I'm not lying. They've been using illegal methods to keep their business afloat. Money laundering, hiding assets. You don't have the full picture, Amy. They're in debt. Big time. The bank isn't just after them, they're being investigated by the feds. This could destroy everything. The business, their reputation. And if you don't act fast, it'll take you down with it. The words hit me like a slap. My parents, criminals? No. It couldn't be true. This had to be some kind of misunderstanding. I don't believe you, I spat. I don't believe a word of this. I'm done with them. You'll believe it when you see it. You've been living in your little bubble, building your empire, but it's all connected. You've been tied to their business. And if it all comes crashing down, you'll be dragged down with them. I could barely catch my breath. What do you want from me? I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you the truth. You need to know what they've done. And you need to make a choice. A real choice. My head was spinning. I felt sick to my stomach. Could this really be true? Had they been hiding things from me all these years? Had they used me as a pawn in their game? The thought of everything I had worked for being tied to their mistakes, ruined by their corruption, made me sick. I hung up, feeling a rush of adrenaline flood my veins. There was no going back now. The choice had been made for me. I stood up, pacing the room, mind racing. I had to make a decision. I had to protect everything I had built. I couldn't let my parents' mistakes destroy me. But what if everything I had was already tied to their lies? I grabbed my phone again, hands shaking, and sent a message to my team. Cancel everything. I need to look into something. Just as I hit send, my phone rang again. This time, it was Blake. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Amy, please. I don't know who to trust anymore. What's going on? Can you help? Can you save us? I closed my eyes, listening to his desperate voice. For a moment, I felt something tug in my chest. Was this my chance to redeem myself? To save my family, to fix the years of hurt? But then I remembered. They never wanted to help me. They never believed in me. Why should I save them now? I took a deep breath. I can't save you, Blake. You're on your own. I ended the call and stared out the window, feeling the weight of the decision settling in. My family was crumbling, but I wasn't going down with them. I had to survive. I had to survive. Title: My parents thought I was lazy. Until I turned my hobby into a multi-million-dollar business. The phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with Blake's name. I stared at it, my finger hovering over the screen. I can't save you, Blake. You're on your own. The words I had spoken earlier echoed in my mind, and for a fleeting moment, doubt crept in. What kind of person was I to leave my brother in the lurch? Was this the right choice? But as the phone continued to ring, my resolve only grew stronger. I had made my decision. I had built something from the ground up, something that was mine, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. Not even family. The situation was more complicated than I'd imagined. Tom's call about the money laundering, my parents' shady dealings, their world crumbling, it was all a part of the bigger picture. The picture I had tried to escape for so long. I turned my back on the phone and walked to the desk. My empire was thriving. I had clients, employees, deals lined up. I had to protect all of that. I couldn't risk everything on a family who'd never supported me. And I wasn't about to let their failure take me down with them. My heart pounded as I tapped into my computer, looking through financial records, digging through years of transactions. Tom had been right, there were signs of fraud. Hidden payments, assets disguised in shell companies, accounts that didn't add up. I felt the bile rise in my throat. The shock of it all had faded to a cold realization I wasn't just watching my parents fall from grace. I was part of their downfall, unknowingly connected to it through my family's toxic web. I wasn't naive anymore. The naivety that kept me wishing for their love, that kept me chasing their approval, was gone. What had happened to me? What had happened to the girl who once dreamed of a family that would love her no matter what? My parents never gave me that, and now, I was no longer going to be the fool who tried to force them into something they couldn't be. A sudden knock on my office door interrupted my thoughts. I turned just in time to see Rachel, one of my top managers, step inside, her face flushed with urgency. "Amy, there's something you need to see," she said, her voice trembling. "It's about your parents." I stood up, my pulse quickening. I'd had enough of their games. But Rachel's urgency told me this wasn't just another call. "What is it?" I demanded. Rachel handed me a thick envelope. I tore it open, my hands shaking as I pulled out the contents. It was an official-looking letter from the bank, addressed to my parents. A foreclosure notice. But that wasn't what made my heart stop. What made my heart stop was the attachment. A report from the FBI. They were under investigation, for more than just fraud. Money laundering, tax evasion, and links to organized crime. I dropped the letter onto my desk, staring at the documents as the weight of the situation hit me like a tidal wave. They were no longer just at risk of losing their business. They were facing criminal charges. I felt a cold rush of anger flood through me. Everything I had worked for had been built on lies. I was in deeper than I realized. I had to act, and I had to act fast. But how? The anger inside me burned with a sharp, biting clarity. I had been overlooked, abandoned, and taken advantage of for far too long. They deserved this. "Rachel, get me everything we have on my parents' finances," I snapped, my voice barely recognizable even to myself. "Every piece of data, every contract, every transaction." She nodded and left, but my thoughts were already racing ahead, calculating my next move. Revenge. It wasn't just a desire anymore, it was a necessity. The same people who had torn me down, who had humiliated me, had caused me years of emotional pain, were now going to watch everything they held dear crumble at their feet. And I was going to be the one to make it happen. The next few days were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and frantic research. My team and I dug through my parents' businesses, their investments, and their hidden deals. Every scrap of information we could find about their illegal activities, we gathered. I found connections between them and the very criminals they had been hiding. People they had brushed elbows with at their elite parties. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that my family's empire wasn't just crumbling because of bad business, it was crumbling because of their greed and lies. They had created a house of cards, and it was finally falling. But it wasn't enough to expose them. It wasn't enough to just let the law take its course. I wanted them to feel the weight of their actions. I wanted them to feel the consequences of their cruelty. I wanted them to know how it felt to lose everything, not just the money, but the reputation they had spent a lifetime building. I spent hours on the phone with my lawyer, coordinating how to distance myself legally from their mess. The more I heard, the clearer it became my parents had made sure to protect themselves, leaving me as the collateral damage. I would make them regret that. 2 days later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Blake. I had been ignoring his messages, but something told me I had to take this one. He sounded desperate. "Amy, I don't know what's happening, but Mom and Dad are in deep trouble. They're saying you're the only one who can fix this. Please, just listen." I cut him off. "I'm done, Blake. They've had every chance to help me, to support me. They chose their image over their family, and now, they're paying the price. Amy, I don't understand. We're family. You can't just walk away." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Family? Is that what we are? You and I both know that's a lie. They never cared about me. They never cared about Zoe. They used me, used us all, and now they're going down. And I'm not going down with them." Blake's voice softened, a desperate plea in his words. "Please, Amy. This could ruin all of us. You have the power to stop this. We could fix it together." I scoffed. "Fix it? Blake, you're still playing the hero. But I'm not buying it. I've worked too hard to build what I have now. I'm not saving them. I'm not saving you. And I'm certainly not saving anyone who turned their back on me when I needed them." There was a long pause. When Blake spoke again, his voice was quieter, filled with regret. "I guess I deserve that. But I'm asking, no, I'm begging, can you at least help Dad? He's not just the man you think he is. I know he's made mistakes, but this isn't just about business anymore. It's about him. About us." My fingers gripped the edge of the desk as I looked out the window, the city lights gleaming below. I had a choice. I could help him. I could save them, for old time's sake. But I knew the price. The price of family was too high. No, Blake. I'm done, I said, my voice steady. Let them face the consequences of their actions. I ended the call, the finality of my decision settling in. I was free. I had finally broken free. The next week, my parents' business crumbled publicly. The FBI stormed in, their names plastered across the front pages of every news outlet. My parents were arrested, their empire dismantled in an instant. The scandal hit the tabloids, and it was a spectacle. But none of it mattered to me. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. The weight of their rejection, their cruelty, had lifted. It didn't matter that they were losing everything. It didn't matter that Blake would never speak to me again. What mattered was that I had won. I had turned their neglect into power, their cruelty into fuel for my own fire. I had built something on my own, without their help, without their approval. And I would never let anyone, especially them, take that away from me again. As I sat at my desk, signing off on another multimillion-dollar deal, I allowed myself a brief moment of reflection. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. Reclaiming my family, not the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen, my employees, my clients, my true friends. The people who had been there for me when I needed them. And as the ink dried on the final contract, I realized that the best revenge was not in their downfall, but in my rise.